tape.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
The usual Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
The usual Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
Okay, Sarah. The usual Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
Okay, Sarah. The usual Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
Okay, Sarah. The usual Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
Okay, Sarah. The usual Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I burned incense a little bit.
What kind?
Sarah, are you there? Fred Soul Cedar fragrance.
What does that smell?
I don't know what's going on.
What
Sorry.
kind?
Are you exactly the way
What does that smell?
Banish the computer.
How is it now? I just changed one thing, Sarah. Sarah. Yes, it's good, or yes, it's doing the same thing. It's working. You fixed it. Okay.
Woohoo! Yay!
I have no idea why that was the way it was, but okay.
Okay, let's ground and reset, and can you, in some way summarize what you said before?
Yeah. I can do all that.
And more.
So it may not be word for word verbatim of what I was saying earlier, but here's the gist of what I was saying. Is we're getting ready for a major event, the level 4 week-long intensive. I'm always asked what kind of intensive it is, and I'll say the same thing Coyote told us the first time he invited me to intensive was, it's the intense kind. It's not your mother's weak, wimpy, airy-fairy, new age, pagan, weekend warrior. Light intensive. It's the real deal.
We don't get to dance naked in the forest?
Oh, you can dance naked in the forest all you want, but you have to do it intensely. But nakedity is not required, especially this time of year, and especially if there happens to be snow on the ground. So this is a major initiatory event. It's transformative. The effects and the process started as soon as you committed to this process. The theme you should have been getting from everything I've been telling you this year on the broadcasts, in person, in my blogs, the last blogs of the year, just before New Year's, and I've put out one this year, is that it's time to kick things up a notch. It's time for humanity. It's time for us. It's time for the school. We're about to make a small quantum leap forward in terms of, and upward in terms of our abilities and our responsibility. So on a day-to-day basis, you need to be doing your personal practice. You need to be building your personal power by doing what you say you're going to do. You say you're going to do it, and then you do it. And that's one of many ways of building personal power. There's no downtime. There's no off time. That ship sailed a long time ago. So forget about that. When we're broadcasting, when we're talking around, sitting, talking around, eating, when we're walking across the parking lot, especially as a group, as a POG, it's always on. The work is going forward. So today's review is in preparation for next week's class. It starts 7 days from now minus a couple hours. It's an opportunity to review some of the basic skills like your place of power, like, yeah, go ahead and pull that chair forward. And you're building your place of power, your personal practice, refining some of those things. It's about upscaling your discipline. And so those skills will be necessary for you to get the most out of next week's week-long course. They're required for you to get the most out of all your spiritual work going forward. So that's what today is. Today is a refresher course, a crash course, a reminder of what I know you've been told before. And this isn't to say anybody is or isn't doing this. This is to make sure everybody goes into next week as prepared as you can be for something you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. All I can tell you is I survived it, and I did it the hard way. Bonnie survived it, and she did it the easy way. As she glares at me, thinking that week-long intensive was easy. Mine was 9 months. That's all I have to say about that. And you're welcome, all of you. It was my karma to do so. So, that's what I have to say is take all this seriously. We're going to be talking about all manner of things. One of the ones that we don't talk about probably enough is feng shui. If you're ever over here helping us set up for even today's simple broadcast, we clean the room. Now, we just did it a couple days ago, so we didn't have as much to do this morning. But the goal when you're doing any of your spiritual work is to have everything you need in the space and nothing that you don't. And Bonnie's going to elaborate on this at some point throughout the day. I have no idea how she's organized her schedule. But you don't need an inch of ash around the fireplace when you're doing spiritual work, so we sweep it up. You don't need last week's clean laundry still piled up on the sofa because I was too lazy to fold it and take it upstairs. My closet's upstairs. And so all that stuff has to go away. And you start in whatever portion of your home is the little corner. Okay, I hope they survived that. Whatever little corner you have carved out for your altar. And you work out in concentric circles or concentric rectangles, whatever shape works for you. And the goal is to make your whole house a temple. Feng Shui affects the energy flow in the room. For those, many, you were all here when Coyote came, but what you didn't see was the day before when he first walked into the space after not having been here for about 2 years. He walked in and went, oh, yeah, nice space. You know, he immediately noticed our symbols for the 4 elements in the 4 directions. None of his students who were with him noticed that, but he did, oh, don't. Feng Shui is crucial. You can't purify yourself if you're living in a toxic waste dump. So we purify our surroundings, we purify our bodies by eating clean, pure food. We periodically do things like a detoxification program to flush our cells. We have to purify our minds because every day we're immersed out there in that blue pill world. And you can't help but be exposed to that clutter, those low vibrations, and that negativity. When you go into San Francisco or Los Angeles or any other big city where there's a lot of pollution, you're affected by it. Now, you may be living out in a rural area with clean air and clean water and eating healthy, but as soon as you go in there, you're starting to be exposed to a small degree to all those toxins, all that electromagnetic pollution and everything. And so we have to periodically cleanse ourselves of that. We have to do that with our homes. The air comes in, it brings that with us. So we sweep, we clean every surface. And we have to do that with our bodies as well as our whole life. That's part of what feng shui is. If you've ever studied fluid flow, like irrigation canals or air conditioning ducts, you go to their big restaurants or big buildings, and over here is where the big duct comes out of the wall and it comes down and then it branches into smaller ducts and everything. There's an optimal size of each duct based on the amount of air going through it. And so that's fluid flow. And that's a really good example and lesson for energy flow in a space.
Stella, what are you doing?
And busted on national TV.
Okay, well, you can't be walking around.
Poor kid. So this energy concept, by now, as holders of the Akadwa, you should have gotten it. I hope that you are aware that energy flows in us, through us, around us, and that we, with the amplification effects of the Akadwa, affect how energy moves in a space. So kick it up a notch, take it seriously, game on. That's my message. And as the day progresses, if Bonnie decides she needs my assistance, I am available, but I won't be here for most of it. And you just have to poke my head in here or scream at me down in the other room and I'll be back. But I'm turning this over to her because she's really good at these details. Everything that I just mentioned in broad, she's an expert.
Before we let down the energy, I just need to make some announcements about what we're going to be doing, and then we'll take a short break just to reconfigure. Okay.
Why don't you sit over here? And I'll trade you places. I get to drive.
Okay, so just briefly, we're going to go through a lot of the same exercises that we did a few weeks ago, because essentially what we're trying to do is extend our attention span. Exercises that I suggested maybe you should try for 5 minutes. I was reading in one of EJ's books and he's saying, oh no, you got to start out at 25 minutes and work up from there. So, yes.
Serenity says hi.
Hi, Serenity. So basically, we're going to be, for the most part, trying to expand our attention for 7 days when we go through the level 4 intensive. And I say that only because you haven't been through other training in this lineage to know that even a weekend workshop is like that. It's being on all the time because we're trying to expand our ability to see the other worlds and navigate them, and we don't want to fall asleep during something important. Now, falling asleep is going to happen. We're going through different chambers, and I'm going to speak a little bit about that later on, again from some of the books that we purchased just last month at EJ's from Claude regarding exercises that can be done for attention. And the basic idea here is that we have snapshots. We're going to be in this room for a focused period of time, and then we're going to take a break, and we're going to go out and do some other things, but we need to not go back to clear back to our ordinary reality habits. You're gonna still keep a level of attention on all the time. So if we're taking a break and, you know, we go to the bathroom, we go to check on the baby, we take a break to eat something, we are in between exercises and everybody's, you know, getting into position, ready to do the exercise, you still wanna be holding space for this workshop that we're doing right now. We're gonna call it a workshop just because I'm trying to contain it into a space. Because we'll be being taken through many different spaces in the level 4. And some of them, the radiations will be high and we might just fall asleep during the whole thing. But there still needs to be a level of engagement, not a complete shutting down and checking out. And one of these areas that we tend to check out on is with food in particular. So we're probably used to, like when we watch a movie, of sitting there and eating the whole time. We're eating subconsciously. So eating is going to be a conscious part of the level 4, where not every single meal, but the majority of them will be sitting down together, in which case the teachings are continuing. If someone is speaking, we really all need to be giving them our attention, so that there's an opportunity for teachings to come through from anyone, but in particularly those who are facilitating and giving instructions and things. Mm-hmm. So I guess the biggest thing that I want to impart to you from my 12 years or so of voyaging in these various schools that our lineage is attached to is that there's nothing ordinary. There is no ordinary moments. Everything is an opportunity for teaching. Everything is an opportunity to bring the sacred into what it is that you're doing. And so even if you may be asked to take the trash out, that's still an important act as far as the entire week that we're working on. And we'll rotate, you know, responsibilities and things. So in a very small way, I'd like to try to start mimicking what we're going to be doing next week in the few hours that we'll be together today. So we'll have a teaching module, and then we break, and then we'll get some instruction, and we'll go through another teaching exercise. So Sarah, I don't know if you're available all day or not to be with us. Basically, we wanted to start at 10, and it's going to be 11 before we actually start the first exercise. But I think that possibly we can talk about leaving this up online so that Maria and I don't know, maybe even Karen could watch it at a later time, later today or something. Yeah. So anyway, this what I'm going to be working with and introducing to you today, I've actually gone back. I got a hit to go back and look at the introduction to the Labyrinth Readers course. So this is the 3-month-long training to become a Labyrinth reader for the ABD, for those who are voyaging and things. But really, it's the essence of what we need to know to hold our concentration and our attention to do anything. If we expect to be able to talk to someone who's dead and in transition and expect them to receive those instructions, then we need to be able to hold our attention long enough and feel confident that we made that connection. Yes, sir.
Sarah says she should be here all day.
Okay, great. So we're going to take some logical break time, Sarah and Serenity. Maybe you can watch this time. And then meet back, so that we can continue. So you can kind of think about that, how that works for you. So is there any questions about any of that? So now, the other thing was, when we were doing these exercises last time, there was some comments that, it's hard, with the noise with the babies and things like that. And that's true. And this is not the most ideal environment to learn in an instructional way. But in practice, we have to be able to hold our attention anywhere. And because we are a Toltec school that includes children and includes, big hairy mountain men who have to bring in firewood or whatever it is that, happens in our world. So we still need to learn to be that calm in the storm. So realize that where there's some very real distractions here, there's always going to be distractions. If I isolate us into a soundproof, light-proof room, we're still going to be distracted by our own thoughts and paranoias and fears and whatever it is. So so that's kind of the goal as far as I'm concerned, is, to get to a point where if we had to go to battle today, in a spiritual battle, let's say, who are we taking with us? And we need to know and trust each other as a group, that so and so is not going to just go off in left field and start doing something wonky. So this is part of the training that happens in the level 4, is to be with a group of people all week, is to learn how to be together. And what we're going to miss probably first and foremost is our isolation and our time to hide, or our time to shut down. And there's good ways and bad ways of channeling that energy. So, there's going to be times when we have obvious breaks, so utilize that. It might sound really restrictive when we do this kind of thing. I mean, obviously our real lives are not this restrictive, but that's only in comparison to our old life, which has no restrictions, which we do whatever, whenever, and we only go to work and do what we have to do because, something's demanding upon us. These are self-imposed restrictions that basically, by creating our own rules, we can live under lesser rules. We don't have to, as long as we're responsible for what we're doing, we don't need to have a whole pantheon of rules that we live under. But we have to learn how to balance ourselves and discipline ourselves and be there when it's time to work, or to do what we have to do. And when it's time to rest or shut down or relax or sleep or whatever, that's what we're doing. So that's going to seem a little weird at first, but by the time we get through the next 2 weeks, it's going to be a new step forward as to how to be a more conscious being, and so hopefully something that you can take with you and start integrating into your personal lives. All right, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have issues with sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
I have difficulty going to sleep too soon. I just lay.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is start tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
to readjust my schedule. So if I have an idea
Yep.
of what the flow is expected to be, I'm going to try to get in that energy.
So bedtime might vary slightly, but probably sometime between 10 and midnight.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then you'll be up by 6
Or 7.
and 7 at the latest.
Okay.
We start early.
Now, keep in mind, that doesn't mean you're out jogging around, in the neighborhood, but realize that there's not too much that you have to, we're not going anywhere. We're snowed into a retreat center. Where we're going is spiritually, and we're going to be voyaging in that way. And your body is the one that's going to probably have the most difficult time. So with a schedule. The thing is there's things that can't be imparted to you because there's shocks to the system. And, in retrospect, looking back at like the first intensive I ever did, like with Coyote, it's like, what the hell? But at the same time, now looking back at it, I can see what was necessary, what was created, and the effects that it had on the higher bodies, which is really what we're here to work with. This isn't boot camp, where we're going to be out doing physical stuff. It's more about learning to be present. What we're exercising right now is our consciousness. So that's, yeah. And we all have a tendency to talk about it. We want to get books. We want to take workshops. We want to learn all these cool techniques. But when it comes down to actually doing them, that's, maybe we practice a couple times a year, but creating that to the point where it's part of you, it's part of your body of habits. That's what we're looking at. Yes.
I think that's a really good point that you just made, in that there's a difference in a real esoteric school, in this Toltec work, between theory and practice. And the spiritual paths everywhere are littered with thousands of textbooks and videotapes and conference handouts left scattered by the people who did nothing with the knowledge. And ultimately, you're going to go through this process, and then it's going to change you. That's the goal. And so it is all about the practice. That's what you have to realize going forward. And not just the week of preparation and the week of this seminar. This is your life going forward. Is anybody who's taken that red pill and woken up, you don't get to go back. Just like the guy in the Matrix movie who tried to go back, he couldn't. It won't work. He ended up dead because he tried to go back rather than embracing his path. So, okay. Practice,
anyway, yeah, I mean, we're aware of a lot of those considerations, and so the next thing, let me just go over really quick is some paperwork stuff. We do have a new calendar out for winter and spring of 2019, and this is available in hard copy. It was emailed to you as an attachment. So if has hard copies here, it's also on the website, Akadiwa calendar section of the website, and there's basically some blurbs that Golden Eagle has put out about the Akadiwa, about his book Heal Your Life, Heal the World, and about the Institute. So for the students. And then there's both Akadiwa and events on here, a few of the shamanic weekends and things. So be sure and get one of those. And then for the level 4 itself, there was an email sent out last night which has a what the heck is this? I think this is yours.
Yeah, that's mine.
Is it mine?
I asked for one to be printed out.
Right, so hold on. Okay, so what I have is
A mountain man.
a hard copy of what was sent to you yesterday. In email. So, and basically what this is trying to think what I called it. It was the information packet. So one, I have a list of things in an email that I asked for confirmation on. You confirmed that you received it. You didn't confirm that you read it. So, okay, so there's a whole list of things in there that I need confirmation on. That you received it, that you read it, that you don't necessarily have any other questions about it. There's things that I'm asking for. I need to know where you're at with your deposits and payments, and I need payment arrangements before the class starts. Okay, I need to know in writing what you're committing to doing, because that's part of the invocation. If you don't have an exchange for something, you don't necessarily receive it the same way, and so having that in writing that you're going to make some kind of committed payment is important. If you've already paid, no problem, but there was other questions on there regarding food and dietary preferences and allergies and a few other things. So I need all of that back in writing by an email as soon as possible so that I can plan the meals and things like that.
Okay.
And then there's some other information that was requested originally. I don't think we ever got from you. I thought we had it. I have it. You checked off that you sent us the registration information that we initially asked for, which had your birth date and place and time, and then where you were at with the Akadiwa and stuff. So all those questions are in here, and I'm not finding yours. I'm sorry. So I need it again.
I sent it.
Okay, I didn't see it, so it's been. It could have been one of the wrong email addresses, and it's just buried.
Okay.
And so if I can get at least a blurb on that, because he'll need that for an exercise he's going to be working on. So along with that, just know that I'll get signatures on a hard copy of that just for our records when we actually meet next week. But just know that I need, you know, that specific information that says, send me this, and this. If it doesn't apply to you, great. If it does apply to you, then I need it. So, any questions about any of that? All right.
I do have a payment installment today.
Okay. Groovy. Okay. So we can talk about
You
that.
said that last night, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
So
about
Read,
the-
check when I.
yeah. As soon as we go, now how do we do this? Do we just go offline, or what do we do when we're on a break?
If you don't want the sound of your break broadcast, we'll just stop streaming, and we will start streaming when you're ready to come back.
Okay, we're gonna do that, Sarah. Let's just take like a 15-minute break so that we can get resituated here. People can get a drinks or a snack, but we don't want to have food. We don't want to be eating food in the space while we're working. Okay, so eat something and then come back in 15 minutes. Let's see. Try to hold the space. Note what the space feels like now before we leave, and when we come back, and when we're working. So that's part of the exercise that we're going to be working on. And Sarah, I don't know how well you can do this at home, or anyone else who may be watching this. We're directing this to Sarah, but if anybody else becomes online or watches this later, if you can create a space where you're going to work, where you're going to have the least amount of interruptions, and attend the space as if you're really here, so that you wouldn't necessarily be taking phone calls or other interruptions and things, to the best of your ability. Try to connect. Yes.
Sarah had asked, is drinking tea okay? And I
Yeah.
said yes,
Yeah.
because I'm sitting here drinking
Right.
my beverage. So
Tease.
that's not it's different. It's like my germs. Let me hang on. It's like my germs and my energy are contained in my cup, right? This is me, and I'm not spreading things over here. And as Bonnie mentioned earlier, we tend to eat unconsciously, and we just keep shoving food in, and the whole bowl is gone. I'm like, oh, how did that happen? You know, but it's because we weren't doing it consciously. So that's really what it's about. It's about upgrading our consciousness.
Yes, ma'am.
Could we get the address of where it's at?
Not at this particular time. We still need to check in with him on everything, make sure everything's cool. But we will try to carpool as best as possible, and we're waiting to see what the weather's going to be like. Because if the weather's really bad, you guys won't be able to get in there. So at this point, it's just up Old Stage Road, North Old Stage Road, kind of up by where John Kirby lives, in that vicinity. So it's just for his privacy and stuff. It's not a public place, so we don't want to publicly announce where things are at this point. So, but you'll be safe somewhere between Black Butte and the Eddies. Okay, so we're going to consciously take a 15-minute break. What time is it now?
It's about 5 till 11.
Okay, let's just come back at a quarter. We're going to go live at quarter after, butts in chairs. That's going to be my new thing. BIC, BIC, butts in chairs, by that particular time. Because when we get to the level 4, if you're not there, you're going to miss out on the teachings.
Okay.
So.
Stop.